There's a town in Arizona called Vixsburg where the median home value is $33,800. Let that sit for a second. That's less than a maxed out iPhone with Apple Care. Less than most people's car. And it's not some abandoned pile of bricks in the desert. People live there. They sleep there. They get mail there. And Vicksburg isn't even the strangest one on this list. There are 9 more Arizona towns where, for the price of a phone you'll replace in 2 years, you can own a porch, a roof, and a piece of the actual American frontier. And listen, if forgotten places like this pull at something in you, do me one small favor and hit subscribe, because I keep mapping these out and you're going to want the next one. Number 10, Crown King. Crown King sits at 5,800 feet in the Bradshaw Mountains, and the only way in is 26 miles of dirt switchback that hasn't been paved since mules were doing the work. Fixer cabins here have shown up in the 40 to 90,000 range. Yeah. iPhone Pro Max territory if you stretch it. And the catch is exactly what you'd guess. Getting groceries means a half-day commitment. The town started in the 1870s around the Crown King gold mine, and by the 1890s it was one of the richest gold producers in central Arizona. In 1904 they ran a railroad up that mountain. Switchback after switchback, an actual engineering marvel, just to haul ore out. Then the mine quit. By the 1920s, the rails were yanked up and sold for scrap. The town just stayed. About 100 people still live there full-time. Here's what nobody mentions. The saloon you'll see in every photo. Locals will tell you it was hauled up the mountain plank by plank from a dead camp called Oro Bell in 1906 by mule. The bullet holes in the bar are not decoration. And there's still no gas station. None. People drive that dirt road just to fill up. Honestly, I don't blame the folks who live there. It smells like pine and wood smoke instead of saguaro and exhaust. That's worth something. But we've got 9 more to go. And the next one trades pine trees for cracked asphalt and a ghost on a Conoco lot. Number 9, Hackberry. Hackberry had 68 people in the 2010 census. 68. Today, the actual count is probably lower. And small parcels with a trailer or a fixer on them have moved in the 20 to 60,000 range. The town is famous? Technically, it's on Route 66, but the town itself, the residential bones of it, has basically evaporated. It started in 1874, named after a single hackberry tree growing near the original silver claim. The railroad came in 1882. Route 66 came in 1926. For about 50 years, it was a real little American place. And then in 1978, Interstate 40 went in and skipped Hackberry entirely. That's all it took. One highway decision in an office somewhere, and the lights started going off house by house. Now here's the thing. There's one building that still pulls travelers off the interstate, the Hackberry General Store. A wandering artist named Bob Waldmeyer bought the burned-out shell in 1992, covered it in his hand-drawn Route 66 maps, parked a school bus out back, and lived in it until he died in 2009. The red 57 Corvette sitting out front hasn't moved. The store still smells faintly of incense. I'll be honest, Hackberry is more shrine than town now, but you can still buy a place near it. You'd just have neighbors who are mostly tumbleweeds. Speaking of remote, wait until you see the next one. Number 8, Klondike. Klondike has fewer than 50 residents. Some sources say closer to a dozen. The Aravipa Canyon area around it sees the occasional cabin trade hands in the 30 to 80,000 range, and raw land goes for almost nothing. But honestly, you're not buying the land here. You're buying into a story. The town was started around 1900 by miners who came home from the Yukon empty-handed and named their new camp after the Klondike. Except they spelled it wrong. That spelling stuck. Lead, zinc, and silver kept the places alive for a while. Peak population was maybe 500. The post office finally closed in 1955. Since then, it's been a whisper. And here's the part that gets under your skin. On the morning of February 10th, 1918, a posse rode up to a cabin in the Galiuro Mountains to arrest the Power brothers for dodging the draft. 4 minutes later, 26 bullets had been fired, and the Graham County Sheriff plus 2 deputies were dead. The Power brothers got one of the longest prison sentences in Arizona history, 42 years. The cabin's still up there, untouched. You ever notice how the cheapest places in America almost always have a body count attached? I don't think that's a coincidence. People don't leave good land, they leave land that scared them. Next one's a different flavor of cheap. This one has neighbors. Number 7, Mayor. Mayor's the practical one on this list. About 1,500 people, a real main street. Manufactured homes regularly listing in the 40 to 75,000 range. If you want a ghost town that still has Wi-Fi and a grocery run, this is the entry-level option. Joe Mayer built a stage stop and saloon here in 1881, at the junction of every road heading into the Bradshaw mines. When the Prescott and Eastern Railroad pulled in 1898, the town blew up. Hotels, 2 newspapers, a smelter project that was supposed to make somebody rich. Then copper prices collapsed in the 1930s, the railroad got pulled out in 1939, and Mayer turned into a husk that just never quite finished dying. Today, you've got Phoenix retirees and remote workers moving in for the 4,400-foot elevation and the Prescott proximity. The 1899 single schoolhouse is still standing. So is half of an abandoned Main Street. But here's the detail I love. In 1916, they started building a 100-foot brick stack for a smelter. They finished the smokestack. Then copper crashed before the machinery showed up. The smokestack has been standing alone in a field for over 100 years now. Never smelted a single ounce, just stands there. A monument to a thing that never happened. I think about that smokestack a lot. America's full of them, honestly. Finished pieces of unfinished dreams. The next stop is older, lower, and frankly half-melted. Number 6, Dos Cabezas. Dos Cabezas has fewer than 30 people in it. A handful is how locals put it. Small parcels with something resembling a home on them sometimes pop up in the 20 to 60,000 range along Highway 186. Calling them homes is doing some heavy lifting, but the price tag is real. It started in 1878 as a stage stop called Ewell Station. Then somebody hit gold and silver in the mountains overhead. And by the 1880s, there was a brewery, a brickyard, a hotel, a blacksmith, even a barber. Some sources push the peak population to 3,000. The mines quit in 1894, came back briefly between 1907 and 1914, and then went dark for good. The adobes have been melting back into the dirt ever since. What kills me about Dos Cabezas is the cemetery. Once a year, the descendants of the original families drive in from wherever they ended up. Tucson, Phoenix, California, and clean the graves. Wooden crosses. Stones cairned by hand. They keep the dead in better shape than the town itself. Oh, and the name Dos Cabezas, 2 heads. The twin granite peaks above the ruins look exactly like a pair of human skulls in profile. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'll just say that. Quick pause before we keep going. We're halfway in, and I'll level with you. The next 5 towns are the ones that really got to me. If you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment, because the story at number 1 is the one I genuinely couldn't shake. You're going to want to be here when I do the rest of the states. All right, back to it. Number 5, Stanton. Stanton barely has permanent residents, somewhere between 0 and 2 depending on the season, but it might be the cheapest. Live their deal in Arizona. The whole town is owned by the Lost Dutchman's Mining Association. For an entry-level membership that's historically run in the low thousands, you get gold panning rights, an RV hookup, and access to genuine 1870s buildings. That is, technically less than an iPhone. Now, fair warning, that's access, not a deed. You don't own a house. You own a stake in the experience. But here's why Stanton's on this list anyway. The history. Stanton was founded in 1863 after somebody pulled gold nuggets the size of potatoes off Rich Hill. Still one of the richest placer strikes in American history. The town got its name from Charles P. Stanton, an Irish ex-seminarian who, according to local folklore that's frankly hard to disprove, had his business rivals murdered one by one until he owned the stage stop, the store, and the saloon. He got his in 1886, when a Mexican vaquero shot him dead over an insult to the man's sister. The adobe stage station, the saloon, the opera house, all still standing. Members still find gold nuggets in the wash behind the buildings. Charles Stanton himself, buried somewhere on the property in an unmarked grave. Nobody's sure exactly where. I'll say this, there's something honest about Stanton. It doesn't pretend to be a town anymore. It admits it's a memory you can pay to walk through. The next one doesn't have that luxury. Number 4. McNary. McNary's small mill cottages have been listing in the high 20s to low 80s for years now. Around 350 people still live there, down from over 1,500. And the story of how this town even exists, I don't know how it's not a movie yet. In 1924, the Cady Lumber Company chopped down every commercial pine tree in McNary, Louisiana. They needed a new forest. So they bought a mill in Arizona, and then they chartered trains and physically moved roughly 500 black workers and their families 1,500 miles west to a brand new town they named after themselves. For a while, McNary, Arizona was the largest black community in the state. The mill ran strong through the 40s, 50s, 60s. Then on June 6, 1979, it caught fire. Burned to the ground, it never reopened. The town's been bleeding people ever since. Walk through McNary today, and you'll see rows of identical 1920s mill cottages, half of them boarded up, all of them under huge ponderosa pines. At the edge of town, there's a black cemetery with hand-lettered concrete markers from the 1930s, graves of people who got on a train in Louisiana and never saw home again. Old-timers still call the two halves of town front and back. Those names are from segregation. Nobody updated them. Nobody had to. This one doesn't sit right with me. I'm just going to say that. A whole community uprooted for a paycheck, and then the paycheck burned down. Next. Number 3. Chloride. Chloride has somewhere between 200 and 300 residents, and it has, no exaggeration, the most active ghost town real estate market in the state. Fixers and old miner cottages list in the 30 to 75,000 range. There's a recent listing I saw, 2 homes on 3/4 of an acre for 75 grand total. 2 of them, together. Founded around 1862 after silver chloride deposits were pulled out of the Surbat Mountains, Chloride is officially the oldest continuously inhabited mining town in Arizona. The post office has been running without a break since 1873. Longest in the state. At one point, you had 2,000 people, 75 mines, 4 churches, and a stock exchange. The mines played out slow through the 40s, but Chloride never had the courtesy to fully die. Today, it's a working artist colony. Californians, Vegas refugees, off-gridders mock gunfights on the first and third Saturday of the month. Yard art made of bottle trees and rusted ore buckets. But the thing I'd actually drive out there for is up in the rocks above town. In 1966, a young artist named Roy Purcell spent a summer painting massive psychedelic murals on a 2,000-square-foot granite outcrop. Giant serpents, Hindu gods, a goddess figure staring out over the desert. The journey, he called it. It's still there, faded, weathered, vivid. Painted in 1966 by a kid who didn't expect the town to outlive its mines, and it has. That's the one that gives me hope on this list, honestly. The next one isn't going to. Number 2. Ash Fork. Ash Fork's median listings price is around $58,000. That's the median, not the bottom. Redfin has had homes in the 25 to 95,000 range, and raw lots have shown up as low as 5,000. The town has roughly 400 people, give or take, and it sits on what used to be the busiest stretch of Route 66 in northern Arizona. Ash Fork started in 1882 as a railroad division point on the Atlantic and Pacific. Big sandstone quarries earned it the title Flagstone Capital of the USA, and that title is still painted on a sign there, even though almost nobody's left to read it. Peak population pushed past 1,000 in the 1950s when Route 66 ran straight through downtown. And then the killing started, slow. The railroad pulled its main line out in 1960. A fire took most of downtown in November of 1977. Interstate 40 bypassed the town in 1979. 3 body blows in 20 years. What I want you to picture is this. The 1977 fire wasn't the first. Ash Fork burned in 1893, burned again in 1905, then 1977. 3 times. 3 times this town watched itself become ash and rebuilt anyway. And locals will tell you that the 3rd time, something gave up. There's an empty lot off Lewis Avenue where the Escalante Hotel used to stand. Grand Harvey House, torn down in 1968. The foundation's still there, like a chalk outline at a crime scene. You can buy a house here for the price of a phone, sure. But you'd be moving onto a street that has burned down more times than most American towns. Have had mayors, that's the deal. And it's still not the saddest one on this list. Hold on. Number 1, Vixsburg, La Paz County. Median property value per Data USA, $33,800. That is the headline. That is the number I opened this video with. A median, not a fluke listing, not a foreclosure, not some plot in the back of Beyond, the middle of the market, less than an iPhone 16 Pro Max with AppleCare. The town was started out in the late 1800s as a stage and freight stop on the Wagon Road between Wickenburg and the Colorado River. Named for an early settler named Vix Cole, the Desert Queen, Winchester, and Bonanza mines pulled gold, silver, and manganese out of the ground in the 1890s and early 1900s. The Arizona and California Railroad, a Santa Fe branch, reached Vicksburg in 1907. For about 10 years, it was somebody. Then the mines petered out. The railroad kept rolling through, but stopped getting off. And Vicksburg started a 100-year quiet exhale that it still hasn't finished. Now picture this, Highway 60, 2 lanes. A single railroad track running parallel like a forgotten promise. Sun-bleached single-wide scattered across creosote flats. A post office. A feed store. 1 restaurant, maybe 2. The Harkahala Mountains sitting 20 miles north in violet silhouette. About 600 people in the greater area, most of them snowbirds who drift in for winter and back out before May. Here's the part I can't stop thinking about. Vicksburg sits inside the Ranagras Plain, one of the darkest night skies in the entire lower 48. Locals will tell you that on a moonless night, you can read a book by starlight. Read a book by starlight in 2026 in America. And that, I think, is the actual reason this town still exists. It's not the cheap homes, it's not the railroad, it's not even the snowbirds. It's that for the people who chose Vicksburg, the ones who looked at a $30,000 house in the middle of nowhere and said, yes, what they were buying wasn't square footage. It was sky, it was silence. It was the part of America that hasn't been monetized yet, because nobody can figure out how to put a price tag on the dark. $33,800 for a house. In a country where people are paying that much per year just to rent a 1-bedroom in a city they hate. I'm not telling you to move to Vicksburg. I'm telling you it exists, and the fact that it exists, quietly, off a 2-lane highway, with stars overhead and a post office still running, says something about America that most of us forgot. So here's what I want from you. If even one of these towns made you feel something, curiosity, sadness, the weird urge to pack a bag and just go, drop the name in the comments. I read them. I want to know which one hit hardest, because that tells me which one to go visit next. Share this with the one friend who keeps talking about disappearing off the grid. They need to see Vicksburg. And the subscribe button's right there. You know what it does. One last thing before you go. Somewhere tonight, in Vicksburg, the lights are off and the stars are on. And a house under that sky is cheaper than the phone in your hand. Think about that.